Welcome to the Universal Dancer Podcast with your host Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance and the Alchemia Remedies. Coming to you live from Cairo, Egypt, the ancient land of Chem. Journey with us to explore sacred dance, the sacred arts, the mystical and the magical. Join a community of like-minded souls seeking to understand the cosmic dance of co-creation through the sacred arts. Come along and expand your mind, ignite your creativity, and explore something new and something old.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm happy you could join us. If you're here live, please tell us where you're visiting from, and welcome. So tonight I have Stefan Freedman. He's my guest, and I'm going to introduce you to him. And let's just jump right in. All right.
Stefan Freedman and his wife Bethan were among the first wave of sacred circle dance teachers in the Findhorn tradition. For almost 40 years, they've toured the world leading sacred dance workshops from complete beginner to advanced levels, as well as cultural trips and festivals incorporating live music. Stefan's memorable choreography is designed for participation and is celebrated worldwide. Titles such as Silky, Long Road to Eden, Ganesha, and Embrace the Shadow signal that there is depth and purpose to his dances. Stefan describes himself as muse-driven, a practical dreamer shape-shifting from choreographer, dance facilitator, filmmaker, songwriter, author, community worker, festival organizer, and multi-instrumentalist. In all of these roles, the common thread is actualizing potential. For 16 years, Stefan has facilitated structured dance, creative movement, and music with the Inside Out Community Project. This serves adults receiving mental health support. Stefan says he learns constantly through feedback from people engaging with participatory arts. Stefan is passionate about promoting connection and harmony between people of diverse ethnic and faith backgrounds. His spiritual aspiration is surrendering to the infinite and then embodying the energy in the form of movement, emotion, and practical action. A constant theme, which he describes as both a strength and a challenge, is integration, the balance between striving and flowing. Stefan's groundbreaking new book, Dance-Wise, is a harvest from all these years of global and local group work. Stefan's early background in education, social science, and research are evident in his writing. His warm, humorous character and love of wordplay enlivens the serious writing with flashes of levity. In response to lockdown, Stefan is now hosting a series of dance, music, and creative events on Zoom. Let us welcome our guest, Stefan Freedman.
Welcome, Stefan. It's nice to have you here.
It's great to be here, especially during lockdown. It's really nice to have a kind of an outreach to people you know and people you haven't yet met.
Yes.
Hi,
Somehow
hi,
it's bringing
Arizona,
us together.
Katerina.
Yes, we have a lot of people joining us live. So
hi, Jessica.
Thank you all for being here.
Hi, Pat. Oh, it's really nice to see you here. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Tatiana. Welcome from Brazil.
Nice.
Brazil is one of my second homes.
Well, we're going to get into that in just a moment. We're going to get into all of that.
I'm going to stop saying hello to everybody so we can have a chat.
Yes. So maybe we can just begin by you just sort of telling us how you first got into dance. What pulled you in, and where did you begin?
It's a rather sweet story because my mother loved to sing and I loved her singing. I was a very dreamy child, and when she sang, it took me into a lovely world. I was a rather insecure kid as well, and I felt very somehow I felt very held by the singing, and I connected with it. I joined in with it. It was many years later, because I was a shy young person. It was about the time early in my university days that a friend sort of coaxed me to come along to a community dance, a barn dance. And as it happened, the band were playing some East European music in the interval. And that was the music that especially captivated me. There was something about I know now that some of it was in 7/rhythm. It was just different from anything I'd heard. But my body, inwardly, my mind, my body, my spirit were dancing before I knew any steps and before I really had experience of it. So it was definitely music which drew me in, and having a very strong response to music which wanted some physical expression. I needed to be inside the music.
So when was that? I mean, how old were you when this was happening?
Well, when my mum was singing to me, I think it was probably started before I was born, but I didn't really become an embodied person, or I began to become an embodied person in my early 20s, because I was so much up in my head and so shy. And very self-conscious about my movement, and had all sorts of ideas, like I've got a funny walk, and I went to a boys' school, so I was shy of girls. It took me some time, really, just to sort of find my body and find the joy of movement. And dancing itself was so therapeutic for me that it took me on a journey to become much more happy in my body, and to discover what we now think of as the body mind, the very intimate connection between movement and states of feeling and states of consciousness.
What kind of dance did you start with? What
Well,
modalities?
it was what we might call rumpity dumpity dumpity dump, the sort of country dancing
Okay.
type things. And that was great because you didn't have to be good at it. Um, and you didn't have to do anything fancy. Basically, we're just charging towards each other and away from each other and galloping down. It was social. And it got me out of my general tendency to be rather slow and introverted, and in my head it was total perfect remedy, really, rumpity dumpity dancing.
And I think that I was having this conversation today with somebody about this, about how we've come to this point where we feel that we need to perfect things or be professional at things, and we seem to have lost that ability to just do things for the joy of it, or just to create. We don't necessarily have to take dance classes. We can just dance, and sometimes by becoming too professional at things, I think we lose the joy of it. So I think it's important to go back to that place of just dancing for the sheer joy of the movement and expression.
I totally am on that wavelength, Leslie, especially having come from an inhibited place. And there are two or three thoughts that spring from that. One is that young children, on the whole, we can't generalize, but on the whole, young children have a very free response to music. They like moving to it freely. They haven't yet been taught or given the idea that maybe some of their movements are silly, or they're supposed to behave or sit still. And it's so lovely to watch and to be around, because it's so natural and exuberant, just like animals when in springtime, when they bounce about. And the other part of my thought to that, and it's the beginning of the book that I wrote about dance, is what I call the invisible dance. Because even if I'm totally paralyzed, when I hear music, something in me is responding in a different way to the way it responds to conversation or food. And we know from science that actually music lights up more parts of the brain than any other activity that we know about, because it's emotional, it's a language of emotions. it has structures, deep structures, complex structures, both the melody and the rhythm. So it's got sort of two sets of patterns going on, and we're just really literally sort of lit up all over from music. And the inner dance happens regardless of whether we're able to move and express it outwardly. I do think that was happening with me as I grew up and found that I loved music, and even before I was expressing it in a visible way.
And I think probably even if someone doesn't consider themselves a dancer or even ever want to dance, my guess is that when they hear music, they're having that inner dance, whether they realize it or not. But for me, I know I am. I'm very conscious that even if I'm sitting still, there's part of me that's dancing. But it would be curious to ask people who don't think they like to dance what kind of an experience they're having internally when they're hearing music.
Yes, yes, I would be interested too. And when we see people with headphones, you can often see that they're nodding heads,
Yeah.
tapping feet. It's very hard not to move. Yeah, I think it takes more effort to not move to music, but we've been learned to sit still, taught to sit still at our desks and all that, or that
Yeah.
we might be looking foolish. So those natural responses tend to be muted. But
Yes.
I do think if we weren't shy, we wouldn't be naturally moving a lot more to sounds, even non-musical sounds, because everything creates a response in us.
And again, going back to children, I think you see that in them. They're less controlled maybe than we are, and so they do just start to move to music when they hear it. I
Yes.
remember reading the book The Magical Child. I don't know if you've read this book.
No, not yet.
No, oh, you would love this book. Anyway, it was Pierce, I think, is the name. I would have to look that up. But anyway, he was. This is a very old book, and he was noticing things in his own children. And one of his children could play the piano by ear, like at the age of 4 or something. And as
Hmm.
soon as they taught the child how to read music, he lost the ability to play by ear. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because you're processing probably more from a left brain or something. And I mean, now I'm sure they could do some kind of a monitoring to find out what parts of the brain respond to playing by ear or to learning music. But I thought that was so interesting that,
Yeah.
yes, you've completely changed the way that child is experiencing something. So yes, it's a
Yes, I find that interesting as well. And another layer of that is that we may lose our confidence to play by ear for two reasons. Firstly, there's the idea that, well, the music's in the note, in the dots. So without the dots, it isn't there. It's kind of nobody says it, but it's implied. Um, and the second is just this, it's the fear of imperfection. The music, if you get it right and you keep practicing, you can perfect it and pass an exam. So if you're improvising, some bits might sound more pleasing than others. You're dealing with more uncertainty. And I wish that education helped us to embrace uncertainty and to find the delicious possibilities in it, but it tends to shut it down and make us nervous around it. So there are those aspects.
But I think that's changing. Again, I see this as part of the feminine, is that unknown. And it is a part maybe that we haven't embraced in recent times, but I think that's changing, and things are becoming a bit more freeform, and hopefully people will become more comfortable with the idea of the unknown and being spontaneous, and it will take time.
Oh, Leslie, I share that hope and vision, and many of my friends do. But I would like to ask you what shows you, what are the signs for you that it's actually manifesting?
Because I think we are embracing this. I think we're going into areas that are less structured, And hopefully, even in things that are structured like schooling, we have more maybe homeschooling and no schooling. So in that structure, but I just think that there's a lot of things. I think things like the internet and technology that have allowed us to explore the unknown are bringing, and I think things like dance, as we get more different styles of dance that are free form. I mean, they always existed, but I don't think we knew about them, because for me, like, I didn't know anything about belly dance or tribal dance until I came to Egypt. I left the US in 86. And although it was happening like in clubs, like Greek clubs or Middle Eastern clubs, it wasn't mainstream like it is now. I'm just using this as an example. But
Yes.
then, I think with the internet, these things just flourished. Then you could see all the different types of dance, and somebody in your town didn't have to know how to do it. You could find it in a broader way. You could watch videos about it. So I do think those kind of free form types of dances, and just spirituality in general, where you're not kind of stuck to some kind of religious dogma, but you have this idea of sort of just a wider concept. I think those things are becoming more popular.
I see what you mean, and I can see that actually, that there's much more freedom to take your inspiration from different sources and find the integrative mix that suits you. You don't have to be a this or a that or subscribe to that school. And you can mix yoga and meditation, or meditation and dance, and they sit together very well. I think there is a lot more freedom and exploration. And you mentioned, for example, belly dance and tribal dance. I find that interesting because they are both dance forms that allow you to improvise and teach a lot of technique and structure. And hopefully the aim, and I think it's always the aim if you've got a sort of a wise system, is to develop both of those paths so that they support and enhance one another, rather than one or the other, and one takes from the other. Because the structure gives you an increased vocabulary, body confidence, it opens a world of possibilities that may not have been there before you learn the structure. I found that learning salsa, I got very excited about salsa. And then at a certain point, it's like, off you go. Never mind what you've learned. It's inside you, and now see where it takes you. And that's thoroughly liberating.
Yes, that muscle memory that then allows you, and I suppose that's the container as well, that can create a container to then be free in your movement based on what your body is already holding.
Yeah. Yeah, like a conversation, because we're using words. We know the words have a certain rigidity and they don't always quite reach what we're trying to express. But without the words, we wouldn't really know where to start. We could grunt and make gestures. So we have a structure and we try and use it to transcend the structure. And I kind of like that. To me, that is a dance.
Yes. And I think what you said, the integration aspect is important. I think we need to embrace, I always felt this, that we need to embrace those masculine and feminine, or yin yang, and bring them together, structure and chaos, and bring them together, because either one of them being dominant is just being out of balance. So I think
Yes.
hopefully we're coming to that realization that it shouldn't be one way or the other, but that it needs to be both.
Very, very much agree, which is why I like the fact that you focus on the what could be called feminine energy or feminine wisdom, because it's much more to do with a holistic view, which incorporates feelings and intuitions and doesn't rely on a kind of a preset plan, follow the plan, which is rather limiting and deadening.
Well, it's good to have a plan. My philosophy is have a plan, but be willing to change. That it's good to have a
Absolutely.
structure, and then we can be dynamic within that structure. So, yes, I think we need both.
I went through a whole reminder of that. Writing the book that I mentioned is called Dance Wise, because I started off with a plan. I got very bogged down, and I just tried with my willpower to power through the bogged down. And in the end, I just had to give up, and I had to literally surrender it to the universe and say, there's something I'm missing here. I'm going to stand out of the way and see what happens. And after a little while, it came back, but in a different form. And it feels, well, I'm just glad that I let that space happen and didn't just try and keep powering through it. But I guess without the plan and the intention, it also wouldn't have manifested. It needed that too.
Well, and I think that's sort of how you challenge the universe, is to say, I'm going in this direction. And if that's not the right direction, I think the universe, that's that dance of co-creation that I'm talking about. This is where I'm going. And if that's not where I should be going, then the universe can answer me back and say, no, why don't you kind of go in this direction? So to me, that's what that is that it is good to have, it's good, and it's good to be clear about it, to be clear about the direction. And then that's when you get the feedback as to, no, that wasn't a good idea. That's not what we're doing.
This totally matches my experience, Leslie. And I have, as a result of it and thinking about it and talking about it, I've come to like the idea, and you never know if your ideas are sort of spot on or not, but I like the idea that we are part of an evolutionary impulse. We're fed by it, and we're feeding into it in our tiny ways, the little waves and the great ocean. But every wave has a little bit to bring to the total ocean. And when we challenge what is. It's also we're bringing something in and saying, is this grit going to make a pearl? Let's see what happens to it. You know.
To be curious, yes, and dynamic, yeah. Before we go ahead.
Well, I
Sorry.
just wanted to say, and I'm talking to myself really, but not to attach too strongly to my current configuration of things, because it might well need to change. In fact, I'd be disappointed if it didn't change.
But I think that's a hard concept, just the way that we've been educated, which I would call programmed. But anyway, we're taught that we have to know what the outcome is, that we have to have a plan and we have to know what the outcome is. And that's just the way we've been taught. So that's the process. And I think then you have to rise above yourself to say, okay, I'm going to let go of that idea, because it becomes kind of a knee-jerk reaction that if I don't have a plan and a way to get to my destination, then I haven't done my work. And I don't think that's true. I think, yeah, have a plan, but then you're going to see how you're actually going to do that.
Exactly. That's where what you said before about the balance between male and female, or yin and yang, and it's a dynamic, changing balance, which reminds me of dancing again.
Exactly.
To me, that really serves life, because there is direction, there is intention. It's not just nebulous things that never reach any conclusion, but you're also willing to listen to the feedback, because otherwise things are only what you plan to do, and sometimes a lot more can come out if you make space for it. And I'm finding that more and more in terms of collaboration as well, that everyone I collaborate with, which includes people that supposedly I'm teaching, but I'm also their student, because there's always a two-way exchange of feedback and learning.
That for me is the way that I learn. I think that that's why I started teaching, was because I needed to be able to move beyond my own thoughts or my own experiences. And the way to do that was to have somebody else's experience. So the way I did that was to teach this to someone else and then see what questions they ask me, because they're going to fill in the blanks of what I don't know, or I'm going to find out what I don't know because they're going to ask me a question that maybe I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
I think that's a way to expand, at least for me, that seems to be the way that I learn, that I can expand my own understanding is through other people's experiences. And for me, that usually comes from teaching. So I guess that's why I'm on this path.
I love the teaching learning relationship. When I started teaching, I think it was much more about me finding confidence and finding a role for myself. And I don't think I was so aware of the mutuality of the relationship. I saw myself more as the provider of tuition. But more and more it's become a dance, a two-way dance, and we take turns in leading, if you like.
But I think that's the old system, that the teacher was the expert and then the student was the one that was supposed to take the information from the expert. But yeah, there's a whole nother level to that of
I
the
agree.
feedback loop. Yeah.
But also for me personally, it was having, I think, some low self-esteem type of issues and just needing. I don't think I was a horribly strict. I wasn't a strict enough teacher. The kids walked all over me when I was school teaching, but I think I needed to somehow rise up in my own self-confidence before I was confident enough to really share the role and let go of the need to imagine that I was in control of something.
I want to ask you, I want to kind of go back a little bit. I want to talk about your book, but I want to go back to something else. I want to talk a little bit about the sacred circle dance. Just maybe you can kind of explain what it is for people, because I think it's interesting to explore different types of dance. I like to do that on this program. So maybe you can explain kind of what it is or what it looks like or how it's done for those people who, I know there's a lot of people here that know you and your work, but for those who don't or who have never experienced circle dance, maybe you can explain what that is.
Thank you. I'd love that opportunity. And as you know, anybody that you talk to who's into something will give their own, it's never free from your own subjective view of it. So this is not like an official version. This is Stefan's personal take on sacred circle dance. There are always different stories, but the main story that people will think about is this. There was a guy called Bernard Voisin, lived in Germany, born in Poland, and became a well-established, well-respected ballet dancer, ballet choreographer. Took a trip to Eastern Europe and was bowled over by some of the traditional dancing that he saw there. And he said it wasn't just about the steps, it was about the relation between the people, the atmosphere that surrounded them. And whereas ballet very often has a great lightness to it and a lot is about out and up, these dances had a lot of, what would you say, they were very centered. There was a feeling of really a real solid contact with the earth, which was really important, as if the earth and the feet were somehow, I'm losing my words really, but anyway, he was very taken with those dances, let me put it like that. He decided to learn them, study them, introduce them to groups, ballet dancers and in universities, and say, look, I feel something about these dances. Do you? Can we just explore this? At a certain point, he took some of these dances to Findhorn. By this time, he'd choreographed some as well, which had the same, you might say, rooted or something of a meditative, timeless feel. And the Findhorn community in the north of Scotland, which was a very broad-minded spiritual community, embraced them because it was a very physical way to embody their sense of being a community. And because there was a dimension that could be called meditative or spiritual, meaning that some of the dances were not all about excitement. They were about feeling stillness, serenity, connection, and roots. So one line of the story is that sacred circle dance has always existed, as you know, in many different forms. And one of those forms is the old folk dances, the village traditional folk dances. And this was the foundation for the sacred circle dance movement. Over the last few decades, because it's a very open-ended community enterprise with nobody in charge, we're all the boss. You're the boss. People have brought in all kinds of elements, classical music and movements, a lot more hand movements and expression with the whole body, whereas many traditional folk dances are very feet focused. And it's continuing. It's an evolutionary form. There is no what's to say, there's nothing that doesn't belong. You can do some free dance in a circle dance session, you can meditate, you can have yoga, but the core of it is dances where we do learn some steps so that we become one body moving together, and we have the experience of, in a sense, stepping out of our solo isolated identity and becoming part of a flock and moving together. And very often there's a feeling that our hearts are connected, and the connections don't just stop with the people, but they go up to the universe and down into the earth. It's a very connecting experience. I could go on for a long time, but I hope that's kind of given a bit of a picture.
So, but the theme running through would probably be to bring people together in community. I mean, you're always having a group of people that are dancing together, I'm guessing.
It's been very interesting offering circle dance sessions on Zoom.
Good point.
Some people find it easier to enjoy or connect with than others, because for some people the palpable sense of touch and that social feeling and proximity is very central to their experience. And for others, I would say the inner dance, the places that the music takes you and the way the movements make you feel, is maybe more central to their experience, and they have got a better chance of enjoying the Zoom sessions. That's what I focus on in the Zoom sessions. And I actually do a mixture of what you would probably call supporting free movement exercises and structured dance, because I think when we're not holding hands, that's our best opportunity, is to have both of those elements.
And something you mentioned in your book that I thought you just mentioned here about the folkloric dances, but you mentioned in your book about dances for occasions, like specifically you were talking about funerals and how people don't tend to dance at funerals, but how this can be a really cathartic or a way to bring people together when someone has passed.
Yes, especially if you have music and dances that don't conflict with the mood that we may have, which is a mood of there's a wonderful word in Brazil, saudade. You're missing somebody, but there's also a great feeling of sweetness and affection in that feeling. It's not altogether sad, but there's definitely sadness in there and longing. If you have music and movement that connects with that saudade, with that longing, and it's not like, well, let's all pretend that there's nothing to be sad about and be jolly, but we actually say, okay, it's okay, we're going to be a little bit somber, but we're going to do it in a way that unifies us and somehow take some of those feelings from trapped inside my own individual self to I'm sharing them. It's the same that we do when we share stories about the person that we loved, or maybe their favorite song. It's another way of expressing it. And yeah, so dancing it can really support us, I think, in that. I just want to mention, this is kind of on a tangent, but also similar. It was by pure chance that when the news of the 9/11 tragedy happened, we were in the south of France with a large international group of people, which included Americans. And we sat down together that evening, and some people said, well, obviously we're not going to dance. This is just too horrendous. We couldn't even think of dancing. And some people said, so you're going to stop the program because of something that's happened somewhere else? And there was not immediate rapport. We had different ways of looking at it. Some people wanted to almost pretend it didn't happen until their holiday had finished. Some people were just very, very, very engaged with the news and needed to be authentic. So Bethan and I thought about it, and we talked to the group a bit, and he said, well, what we'll do is we'll do 1 or 2 dances that have a very soothing and nurturing feeling, and then we'll see what people want to do. And that might be the whole evening. We might just leave people to their thoughts. After those 2 dances, there was such a healing atmosphere in the room that I don't think anybody wanted to leave. And it was actually a very long evening of dancing, singing, talking together. And it helped. I mean, it didn't make any difference to the world beyond our group, but it helped our group process the news, feel some sense of support and relief, and also feel unified again, having had very different individual responses. So I could see the healing potential of dance in distressful situations, and that to me connects with your question of the funeral.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think it's so important to, when these things happen, especially, I mean, I think that struck me in the book about the funeral example, because I think more and more people are not grieving. They don't go through this grieving process. It's all become, let's just go on with our lives, or let's not think about it. Here in Egypt, we still have that grieving process. We have condolences that go on for several days, and then you usually come back on the 40th day, and you sit, as you said, and tell stories about the people. And I thought it's very healing to be able to move that through. But what I've seen more in Western culture is that just kind of denial. You maybe go to the funeral and then you're supposed to get over it or forget the whole thing. And to be able to allow those emotions and feelings and maybe memories to go through your body would be such a healing thing. And I think it's also honoring that person. I mean, I would like to think about that. Maybe that's a morbid thing to say, but that would be wonderful. If I thought my friends all got together and danced for me when I passed, I think that would be, I would like that. I think that, I don't know, I feel very connected to that idea that would be a wonderful thing for the person who had passed as well, not just for the group that's kind of left behind, but maybe as a way to connect with that person.
I love that idea. I really love that idea. I also have this rather mad idea that I want to be at my own funeral, serving the food and singing the songs and singing my praises along with the other people. I'm very modest. Yes, that's right. I did that. Don't forget that other thing that I did.
Maybe we need to have a pre-funeral or something, so that we can attend. This is what I would do is if I attended my own funeral. Yeah.
Leslie, I don't laugh, but I had it planned for next year. I don't know what lockdown's going to allow. An international gathering in which I allow myself, as well as all my friends, to do all the things I love to do, readings from my books and and I'm even going to be involved in the buffets. Well, we'll see what lockdown allows, but it's kind of a wild dream. But I just thought I don't want to miss out on my funeral. It could be a really good affair.
Yeah.
And then I'll die later in my own time.
Start something. A new trend.
But I know I'm taking something you said and sort of bouncing off in another direction. And I've learned from some of my friends who are better at grieving than I am, the value of grieving. I have got a tendency to want to transcend and skid over things and just get involved in something that keeps me busy. And after my dad died, I wrote my first 2 books. They were books of cat poems, and it was a sort of displacement activity. There was a nice result, but I think it took me some while to grieve because I was thinking about cats. But anyway, we've all got our own process.
Exactly. But probably just being creative is allowing it to come out in some way. So yeah, anything creative could be the way. Yeah.
It did take me into, yes, it took me into almost like an indulgent place, because cats are so much in the moment and they're so quirky and unpredictable. And so I could really engage with the fluidity of life and the gift of life, while I suppose there was an undertow of grief as well going on. It was the only time I remember when I really wasn't feeling much like doing the group work. Carried on because we had all these commitments, but I would have quite liked to have had a sabbatical time and just been writing at that time.
There's different ways to get it out, I suppose, or move through it. Yeah. So I understand, and maybe we can go in from your book and also things that you've said to me that choreography is really kind of a passion of yours, that you seem to like to create dances. So maybe tell us a little bit about, you talk about several of them in your book, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about the process, maybe why you create them or how you create them.
I'd love to. Because for people who like the community dance, they like the sort of the collective dance, which isn't everybody's bag. If you've also got a creative side, this is one place that you can put it. You can offer a dance to the community and see if it gets picked up. And I love this because I have this, what would you say? I've got this passion for discovering music that takes you to it's like discovering a new color or a new taste. It's just a bit different from anything that you've tasted before. And my almost straight away, in almost every case, my body knows what it wants to do. And all I have to do is stand out of the way so that my body can do something. I mean, not try and plan it. And then do a little bit of a tidy up job or a craftsman's job because there's an extra beat in the music. So what do we do there? Or this verse is longer than that verse. Occasionally I even edit the music. I shouldn't probably say that on a public media. I didn't say that. Somebody else said that.
It's an idea.
But I try to honor the music, and sometimes it's my own music. And usually the basic way of moving is very instinctive and it's almost immediate. How do I want to move to this music? If I fall into what I would think of as a cliche, like steps that you see everywhere, then I think, okay, so what's new? It might need some herbs and spices. What do I do to make this different from another dance? But that's the only role really that my that my planning mind has, is to it's like the herbs, spices, and little tweaks at the end. The rest is very spontaneous, very enjoyable, and usually quick process. And
But
then the
it
people
seems
receiving the
also,
dance will tell me which ones work and which ones don't. And sometimes they get improved when we put them out there in the circle.
I suppose that's like that teaching aspect again, that you get that, you're in that feedback loop.
Mm, mm.
But you mentioned a lot of the dances that you mention in your book are also seem to be based on a concept that
Yes.
so is that sort of the intention behind the dance, and then you find the music, or how does that all unfold for you?
Both ways. Either I fall in love with a piece of music and then I figure out what the dance is about, if it's about anything, um, or I have a concept like I love the image of the centaur. Is there some music that's going to work for that? So it's almost like I've put out my cosmic order. Please send something my way, and quite often by serendipity, I'll hear something, or friends, knowing how quirky I am, are always bombarding me with music, saying you're going to love this, and sometimes I do. So I've got these pieces of lovely music on the back burner, and if I'm in the mood for a moon dance, or there's an occasion coming up, or a particular person whose birthday's coming up, I might almost, it's like those filters are sort of in my mind, and I'm kind of not desperately looking for something, but my peripheral ear is like, what music's going to work for that? For example, someone emailed me I think it was yesterday or the day before, saying, we're going to produce a choreography with water music. Will you create the music? And I wrote back and I said, so are you thinking of slow, serene music, or sparkling water, or sparkling, bubbly water? Oh, both. We're going to have the fast one and the slow one. So, okay, good. I like the sound of that. I'm not sure if they want to choreograph it or if they want me to choreograph it, but I love that kind of opening.
Giving you the
You
flavor
can
of
hear the
what it is.
excitement in my voice. I get very
Yes.
childlike, really.
Yeah, but that's the creativity. That's the fire that comes in, I think. Yeah.
Yes, and it's a good remedy for me for the lockdown blues, because I'm not immune to them, and I have days when I'm not feeling so sparky, so this sparks me up.
And I think going back to what we were talking about just originally what the circle dance is about, I think that's a very interesting thing to do it over Zoom and to allow people to connect, because people are feeling very disconnected now. It seems like this would be a good healing remedy for what's happening at this particular moment in time.
Yes, as in every outreach, whether it's art, music, dance, conversation, knitting, but dance has one of the probably one reasons why you and I love it is that music is it can be such a profound experience, and it can also be so playful and enlivening. And with both of those polarities, it feeds two very deep needs in us. One is to experience stillness in the middle of chaos, and the other is to kind of step out of everything that weighs us down and to lighten up. And it can do both of those things, and moving to it is to get inside that experience. It can take it further, I think, than I love the inner dance, but to have the outer expression really completes it for me. So yes, it is, particularly during lockdown, when it's very easy to feel isolated and actually depressed and ground down, or even just stripped of the role that you used to have in life, and wondering who the heck you are and why'd you get up in the morning. It can help to, I think, revitalize the circuits.
You say in your book, moving to music is like a mental and emotional massage. That was something that really, I love that line.
I don't know if you enjoy massage yourself.
Yes, I do massage, yes.
Do you? Oh,
Yes.
I'm coming to Egypt. I'm not coming to your funeral. I'm coming for a massage. um, I, as I said, I was a very shy young person, and at, I've always been rather tight in my body. I don't have a natural dancer's body. Um, and massage is one of the things I'm really grateful for, therapeutic massage, and certainly miss it during lockdown. And anything that gives the sensation of it, moving in any way that helps to loosen. That can be stretching, that can be shaking, that can be twisting, but gently and kindly, not forcing things as we might do in athletics. I think that's very healing. Pat
I want
Adams. Oh, thank you, Pat. Thank you very much for that. I saw your message. My choreographers have inspired people in the network. That's really nice feedback. Thank you.
So I want to get into your book because I can see that this conversation could go on for hours. So
Yes.
maybe we better cut to your book, because I think
Okay.
we do want to talk about it. I've read your book and I love your book, and I encourage everyone to read it. I think it's inspirational, and there's also so much information in there, because for me, the way I came to the dance was through kind of free-form dance, and I didn't study. I don't have a background, um, in the physiology of what's going on. So I think your book is really a nice blend of the what's going on in the brain, what's going on in the body, then the creative aspects and your personal experiences. So I really recommend the book to everyone. I think that there's something in there for everyone. And but let's just touch on a few of the topics, because I think you are presenting so much information, and there are things that I would like to talk about. I think one of the things one of the things that I got from your book, but also I think that it relates to the circle dance, is you were talking about how dancing really gives us skills for life situations, and how one of your pieces, Valenki, I think it's called, is really about kind of teaching people how to work in groups. And I think this is a really interesting concept, because I hadn't really thought about that before, that how that could how you could actually use a dance to teach people different kinds of skills.
Yeah, thank you for that. Can I just say, in case somebody's listening and they haven't encountered the book that we're talking about, it's called Dance Wise, just those two words. It was published in October just last year, and it's got a number of dimensions representing my own personal experience over a few decades of group work, and quite a lot of other teachers teaching dance in the community with specific groups like recovering addicts, stroke, people recovering from strokes, young children, people who are being supported through trauma. It's looking at some of the practical uses of dance and the feedback that people give about it. So, and in that context, yeah, I mentioned a dance called Valenki, which I think is a traditional dance. It's one that Bernard Vosian, the man I mentioned before, had a very strong role in the founding of all of this. He used to like to teach, and probably for exactly the reason that you say, because you have two circles that move in opposite directions, then find their way of becoming knitted together, and then each one becomes a sort of a gateway for the other, and they pass through and through. So there's a great sense of cooperative activity. In fact, it takes 5 minutes to learn and 5 minutes to dance. And it's like a whole day. I would say it's like a whole day of team building exercises. At the end of it, you feel this great sense of group achievement, unity. And not only that, but you've had fun. It's quite a playful dance. And there are other dances that have to do with, for example, the person at the leading end of the line it flips around and they become the tail, and the person at the other end of the dance becomes the leader. We call this the snake dance because the snake changes direction. There are many dances that we can use in team building, community awareness, and empathy. Sort of, yeah, exploring empathy, really. It's got those dimensions to it.
And I think something else you pointed out is about the muscle memory, that just by doing these dances, you're creating that important memory in your body, so that the more you do them, you can become more agile, you can become more balanced just by doing simple dances that that build those particular skills as well.
Absolutely. The ability to change direction, not only in the dance, but in life. A big one for me, and this is, it's almost like a feature of the old folk dances and much less a feature in contemporary and ballet. Stamping, stomping, putting your foot down, dancing with a sense of solidity and presence. And the presence isn't just downward in the ground, it's also upwards. English people, when they do Greek dances, for example, tend to grow an inch or two because you can just feel it in the music. You're growing into the sun. And that feeling of embodying your own presence and your own power in your physical body, not just in a concept. I feel that, well, I've had practice in it, in dancing. As I said, I was a shy person. I also was a person who was, I had difficulty with being assertive, putting my foot down and saying no. It seemed like that wasn't a very nice thing to do. And that put me in situations that really compromised me. Where I found I was doing things that I didn't want to be doing, but somehow I hadn't managed to say no. And I really think the dancing helped just to make it very natural and relaxed thing to say, well, actually, this is where I'm standing. And I honor you and where you're standing, but I need to be here where I'm standing. It's a sort of, it strengthens your being as well as your muscles, I believe.
And I think that is a healing dance. And I never saw it that way. This is what I got from your book. For me, healing dance, if I'm talking about healing dance related to the kind of dance I'm doing, it's always more about moving something through your body, maybe moving the energy through your body to remove a blockage, or to, as we were talking about emotions, to let emotions kind of flow through your body. But I never thought about that aspect of muscle memory and practicing different things, that how stamping your feet could be cathartic or really good for people, as you were saying, who are unassertive or who are angry. And that never
Absolutely.
occurred to me that we could actually build those skills of how to do different things that maybe we aren't good at, like being assertive, that we could actually build that through a dance. I found that fascinating.
I'm so glad. And to me, it has an emotional counterpart because in our mind's eye, when we dance different dances, we become a mountain, a tree, a river. So whichever qualities are maybe not so developed or explored in us, we have a chance to explore them. We're exploring the whole landscape of our own emotions. What you were saying about the cathartic aspects of movement, I love that too. I love the fact that we can shake out and stretch out a lot of our not just physical tensions, but actually stuck attitudes. Heavy emotions can be freed through movement. And we tend to breathe much more deeply when we dance, and that's another aspect of emotional release. Everything seems to support everything else. I mean, I know I'm a bit of a born-again dancer, having come from a sort of shy, somewhat disembodied youth. I'm really a bit, I try not to be, but I get a bit evangelistic because it's meant so much to me. And I see other people move from places where they seem to be feeling very heavy and sad into a place where they're feeling more connected with their own integrity and with the community.
But that's that walk the talk kind of thing that you need to, you've had that experience. You hold the truth of what dance has done for you, so you can speak from a place of truth when you say how it can improve your life or your state of being or your emotional state. And I
Yes.
think that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been very interesting for me working with adults who receive mental health support, which is a very diverse group. Seeing over time, because some of them I've been working with for over 10 years, seeing over time how dance is part of an evolution for them, of stepping more into their body, into their feelings, feeling more connected. In some cases, people who were very, very wary of any kind of contact, whether it was verbal or tactile, finding in the dance that they could connect with people. It's been really moving to see that and to learn by watching and participating in that.
Talk a little bit about how it's used for things like addiction or dementia, because I think this is really, both of those are, to me, are very, I think we could have a whole conversation just about how dance is healing, but just
I'll try
maybe
and
pick a couple of those things. I thought those are the things that sort of jumped out at me that I thought were really impressive.
Thank you, Leslie. You may or may not have read it. There's a lot of research now. You can just Google it, dance and dementia, and music and dementia. The two go hand in hand. Really very well researched, documented, objective studies showing that it somehow helps us reconnect lost memories, and even the power of communication and speech can be supported, temporarily reactivated through music and movement. It's as if some of the capacities that we lose in the process of Alzheimer's or dementia are still there latent. It's as if somehow there are little gaps in the circuits. And I know this is not a scientific way of saying it, but it's as if the music and the movement helps to rejoin the bits that have got disconnected. It's almost like wires that have got disconnected. We're still on a learning curve about it. We know more what happens than why it happens, but there's a huge body of evidence that every kind of dance, for example, dance with people who are in wheelchairs, seated, or just movement and swaying to the music and swaying to the music. And in that situation, to include, not exclusively, but to include music that people are familiar with can also be really helpful, because it seems to reactivate, like old photos. It seems to bring back things that somehow slipped out of the frame. It puts them back in the frame. It's like, I remember that. Hey, you haven't spoken for a month. Yeah, but I remember that. And I don't know. It's a really wonderful thing. I would say dementia and Alzheimer, any form of dancing will be healing and supportive. If people need or want the emotional support, perhaps if they're shy or fragile or grieving, then the sacred circle dance repertoire could have a lot to offer them in addition, because it does really allow and enable people the whole range of emotions. It's not just upbeat. And the ethos is that there are no mistakes, only variations, at least when you're learning a dance. If you want to perfect it, sure, that's great. But when you're learning it or just enjoying it, don't worry, there are no mistakes, only variations. And I said that first. If I say so myself, and it's gone viral.
You heard it here.
I didn't quite say it first. I'm gonna fess up now. There's a wonderful singing teacher called Frankie Armstrong, I went to her work, you maybe know her, went to a workshop in 1980, and she said, there are no wrong notes. They're just, whatever you sing will be a harmony somewhere in the world. And I thought, oh, I like that. And I gave it a different turnaround when I started sharing the dances, and that's how it is. There are no mistakes, only variations.
Well, I think that brings us full circle to where we began, which is that about the joyful aspect of dance, and that it doesn't need to be something that you perfect, but something that you just do for the creativity or for the joy of doing it. So yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, all kinds of folk dance, I think, were based on that idea. The idea of a dance performance probably existed in old societies, but it's become much more to the fore in our awareness now, which is why most people say, well, I can't do it because I can't be as good as them. It doesn't matter. You just, yeah, as you say, it's the joy, it's the inner experience. It's can be like a moving meditation. It can be a healing experience. It can be a form of self-exploration and self-development. It's got so many dimensions.
Well, and as you say in the book, dance is our first language. And I think that that's very profound.
I have to attribute that to Peter Lovett, dance psychologist in England. And that's actually what his academic subject is, dance psychology. Yeah. And that's his phrase. And I like it. I love it. Peter Lovett, I love it.
And it's very true. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Stefan. This has been a wonderful conversation. And I think we could go on for hours, but probably we should wrap it up. But I do want to encourage people to read your book. And there's more information on Stefan's website. Also, maybe you can just tell us about any up and coming events that you might have.
I'd love to do that. I'll try and do it quickly. Tomorrow evening there's a concert, and the concert features me and my wife Bethan singing some songs. It's called Enchanted Land, and in between there are musicians playing the duduk, which is an Armenian sort of clarinet, the Celtic harp or Celtic harp, a kaval, which is a lovely sort of breathy wind instrument from Eastern Europe, and the saz, which is a very jangly Turkish instrument, and an oud, and all sorts of things. Contact me on, I think there's an email that Leslie's going to give. Contact me on the email if you like the sound of that. We've got a lovely dance thing on the 2nd of April called Tree Wisdom, mixture of dance, song, and imagery. You're exploring the idea of the tree as ourselves, as a tree with roots and branches and a trunk, and see where that takes us. And there's a whole series of things coming up. There's one on choreography. There's one, I'm calling it Dance Beyond Walls, because I've always been interested in the power of dance to support social change and to bring people together across barriers. So Dance Beyond Walls will be exploring that one. And
are these on your website?
They're on the World Dance website that you're looking at now. Oh, no, you're not looking at probably.
Yes, it's www.worlddance, that's one word, .org. So you
World
can
Dance
go there.
Has only got, World Dance has got only one D in it. I was being very mean with letters. So it's WORLDANCE.org.
Yes. So you can find out about the different events there. And as I mentioned, the book is called Dance Wise, and that you can find out more on www.dancewise, that's one word, .net. And you also have a free gift for those listeners. So maybe you can tell us a little bit.
We've mentioned choreographies, and some of my choreographies are fairly recent, so they're not yet so well known in the network. And I'd be really pleased to share one or two of those with anyone interested, because I like this tradition of giving a gift along with a podcast. So I don't know if you can see my email, but it's DANCEWISE, dancewise, that's one word, 321 at gmail.com, dancewise321 at gmail.com. Just email me if you would like 2 free choreographies. I'd love to share them with you.
Excellent. So thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight, and thank you for your wisdom and your book, which is wonderful. I hope people will read it because there is so much information in there that I do think there's something for everyone. So
thank you so much, Leslie. I've really enjoyed your questions. I just want to add a very little thing. When I wrote the book, I realized you can never put everything within 2 covers. So there's a companion website that has a lot more. It has dance videos, it's got songs, it's got further articles by some of the teachers who've contributed to the book. I look at it as the other wing of the bird, if you like. So it's a book and a website, and the website's free.
Yes, and there's a lot to support the book in there. So it's I think you can get something beyond. I guess that's what's nice now about the internet, is that we can kind of go beyond just the written word, and we can add more of an experience with it. So yes, both of those things. All right. Well, thank you for being with us. And maybe we'll bring you back. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. So that was wonderful to speak to Stefan and get to hear what he had to say. And I really do recommend his book. There's so many things in that book that there's something for everyone. And it's very inspirational as well, I think. Even if you do that type of dance, there's a lot to be said for someone's personal experience and hearing about their journey. So let me just tell you a little bit about what's going to happen next month. So we have Dr. Deborah Kern. She's an author and the creatrix of Pranashakti. So that will be on the 18th of April, on Sunday, another Sunday, on the 18th of April. And if you're on my mailing list, I'll be sending that information out. You can also go to my website, which is universaldancer.com. And there's a tab for the podcast, so you can see who the guests are that are coming up, as well as to find the links to previous interviews, conversations. All the information is there, so you can keep up with that. And if you are on YouTube, if you're watching this as a video, please subscribe. That helps other people find these videos. If you like and subscribe the video, then it will come up more easily in searches for other people as well. And there will be a podcast version on Spotify and iTunes if you prefer to listen to the podcast. So I just want to thank you again for those who were here live. Thank you, and thank you for your comments. And I hope to see you next month. All right. Bye-bye.